My granddaughter was standing in my living room with her husband, Derek, when she told me I needed to hand over the deed to my medical clinic building, the commercial property my late husband built in 1982, the building that generated $18,000 monthly in lease income from the 3 medical practices inside. Because Derek's cryptocurrency company needed collateral for a major investment opportunity, and they'd already told his partners I'd agreed. Grandma Ruth, it's just temporary. Derek needs to show $2.4 million in real estate collateral to secure the crypto investment. Once the deal closes in 6 months, we give the deed back. You keep getting your rent checks. Nothing changes for you. I looked at my granddaughter, at Kendra, 29 years old, the child I'd helped raise after her mother died, the girl I'd put through pharmacy school, the woman I'd trusted with everything. You want me to hand over the deed to your husband's cryptocurrency partners as collateral for an investment I don't understand. It's not just any investment, Grandma. It's blockchain technology. Derek's company is about to explode, but he needs to show assets to get in at the ground floor. And Grandma, the building is just sitting there. You're not using it. You're just collecting rent. This is a chance to help us build something huge. The building generates $216,000 annually. Forever. You want me to risk that for Derek's cryptocurrency scheme? Derek spoke up. Mrs. Holloway, it's not a scheme. It's a legitimate investment opportunity. But I understand your hesitation. You're from a generation that doesn't understand digital assets. That's fine. We're not asking you to understand. We're asking you to trust Kendra. I looked at Derek, 32 years old, married to Kendra for 2 years, always talking about the next big thing. Always pitching investments. Always living beyond his means while asking Kendra to get money from me. I don't trust you. And Kendra, I'm not handing over the deed to my building for your husband's business deal. Grandma, I knew you'd react like this. I told Derek you'd be difficult. But Grandma, we're family. What's yours will be mine someday anyway. We're just asking to use it now when it can actually help us instead of waiting until you die. That sentence hung in the air. What's yours will be mine someday anyway. My granddaughter had just told me she was entitled to my assets now instead of waiting for inheritance. Had framed my refusal to help as being difficult. Had reduced our relationship to waiting for me to die so she could have my property. I didn't yell, didn't lecture, didn't try to explain why what she'd said was cruel. I just looked at Kendra, at the young woman who saw my commercial building as her future inheritance that she deserved access to now. And I understood something important. This wasn't about one request. This was about how Kendra saw me, as an obstacle between her and assets she felt entitled to, as someone old who should help the young, as temporary ownership that would eventually be hers. I see. Thank you for being clear about how you see this. Now I'll be clear. No, you're not getting the deed, not temporarily, not permanently, not ever. Grandma, you're being selfish. I'm being clear. And Kendra, you've shown me who you are. Someone who sees my building as hers already. Someone who thinks I'm being difficult for protecting what I built. Someone who's waiting for me to die so you can have my assets. I won't forget that. They left angry, and I sat in my living room thinking about what had just happened. My granddaughter had asked for my building, had told me it was just sitting there, like generating $18,000 monthly was nothing, had said I was being difficult, had told me she'd inherit it anyway, so why not help her now? And when I'd said no, she'd acted like I was the problem, like I was selfish for not funding Derek's cryptocurrency scheme with my late husband's legacy. I didn't react with anger. I observed. They thought my patience, my calm refusal, my quiet, I was weak, meant I was just old and stubborn but would eventually cave. That was their first mistake. They thought I was broken, that they'd worn me down, that I'd hand over the deed because family pressure would make me comply. That was their first mistake. Now listen, before I tell you what happened when my granddaughter looked at my income-generating building and saw her future inheritance she wanted now. Before I show you what a 74-year-old woman who built a commercial real estate portfolio can do when people mistake patience for weakness, I need you to do something. If you're watching this and someone has ever told you what's yours will be theirs eventually, so you should just give it to them now, hit subscribe right now. Comment where you're from. Because what happened when I stopped being patient and started being strategic, you need to hear every second. Turn on notifications. This goes places Kendra and Derek never imagined. After they left, I made 4 calls. First, to my property attorney, Malcolm Reed. Malcolm, I need you to do something immediately. My granddaughter and her husband are trying to pressure me into handing over the deed to the clinic building. I need to make sure they can't access it even if something happens to me. What kind of pressure? They want to use it as collateral for a cryptocurrency investment. Told me it would be temporary. Asked me to trust them. Kendra said the building would be hers eventually anyway, so why not help her now? That's concerning language. Ruth, do you think they'd try to forge documents or access the deed without permission? I don't know what they're capable of anymore. Malcolm, I need the building protected. Can we transfer it to an LLC? Something they can't touch. We can create a limited liability company with you as sole owner. The building transfers to the LLC. You maintain complete control. But Ruth, even if they somehow got the physical deed, they couldn't do anything with it without your signature. The deed alone isn't enough. Can they get a loan against it? Use it as collateral? Not without proving ownership and authorization. But Ruth, let me ask, do they have access to any of your legal documents? Power of attorney, any signing authority? No, I've never given Kendra power of attorney. But Malcolm, I want to make sure. I want every protection in place. Malcolm drafted LLC documents that afternoon. By the next morning, the clinic building was owned by Holloway Medical Properties, LLC. Ruth Holloway, sole member and manager. Complete control. No co-owners, no vulnerabilities. Second, to my financial advisor, Diana Patterson. Deanna, I need to review my entire estate plan. Make sure my granddaughter can't access anything if something happens to me. Ruth, what's going on? I told her everything. The building request, Derek's cryptocurrency scheme, Kendra's comment about inheritance. She actually said it would be hers eventually anyway. Word for word. Diana, I need to know, if something happened to me tomorrow, what would Kendra inherit? Currently, everything. Your will from 5 years ago leaves your entire estate to Kendra as your only living descendant. That includes the clinic building, your investment accounts, your retirement funds. Total value about $3.2 million. Change it, all of it. Kendra gets nothing. Ruth, are you sure? She's your only grandchild. She's someone who sees my assets as hers already, who thinks I'm being difficult for protecting what I built, who wants to use my building as collateral for her husband's risky investment. Diana, I'm sure. Change everything. Who should be your beneficiary? I thought about that carefully. Split it 3 ways. 1/3 to the medical scholarship fund my husband, and I started in 1985. 1/3 to my goddaughter, Nia. She's the daughter of my late best friend. 1/3 held in trust for Kendra's future children if she ever has any, managed by an independent trustee. Kendra herself gets nothing. That's a strong statement. It's an honest reflection of how she sees me, as temporary ownership of assets she's entitled to. I'm removing that entitlement. Diana updated my will that week. Everything changed, everything protected. Kendra written out completely except for potential future children she might have someday. Third, to my physician, Dr. Harold Chen. Harold, I need a comprehensive health evaluation, full cognitive testing, mental status examination, everything documented. Ruth, are you worried about something? I'm worried my granddaughter might try to claim I'm declining or incompetent if I don't give her what she wants. I need medical documentation proving I'm completely competent and capable. Has Kendra suggested you're declining? Not yet. But Derek called me from a generation that doesn't understand digital assets. They're building a narrative that I'm old and out of touch. I want proof that I'm sharp as ever. Dr. Chen scheduled comprehensive testing. 2 days of cognitive assessments, memory testing, mental status evaluation. After everything, his report was clear. Patient demonstrates excellent cognitive function, memory intact, reasoning sharp, judgment sound. No evidence of any decline. Ruth Holloway is fully competent to manage her affairs. I had the report notarized, filed copies with Malcolm and Diana, made sure it was documented and dated. Proof that I was making these decisions from a position of complete mental clarity. Fourth, to my goddaughter, Nia. Nia, I need to tell you something. I've changed my will. You're now one of my primary beneficiaries. Ruth, what happened? I explained everything. The building request, Kendra's comments, the entitlement, the changes I'd made. Kendra, actually, said the building would be hers eventually anyway. Yes, like I'm just keeping it warm for her. Like my death is inevitable and she's just waiting for it so she can have what's rightfully hers. Nia, I raised that girl, helped her through pharmacy school, supported her, and she sees me as a temporary obstacle. What are you going to do? I'm protecting everything. LLC for the building. New will cutting her out. Medical documentation proving competence. And Nia, I need you to be aware. If Kendra contacts you, if she tries to claim I'm declining or being manipulated, you'll know the truth. I'm here. Whatever you need, Ruth. And Ruth, I'm sorry Kendra did this. So am I. That evening, I sat thinking about Kendra, about when she'd changed, about how Derek had influenced her, about how she'd gone from the loving granddaughter who'd cried at my husband's funeral to someone who looked at my building and saw her inheritance instead of his legacy. I didn't cry. I calculated. If Kendra thought the building would be hers eventually, she needed to understand that eventually had just changed, that her entitlement had cost her everything. 3 days after securing the building and changing my will, Derek called. Not Kendra, Derek. Mrs. Holloway, I want to apologize for how our conversation went. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Can I come by and explain the investment opportunity properly? Once you understand it, I think you'll see why this is such a good opportunity for all of us. I'm not interested in your cryptocurrency investment. I understand your skepticism, but Mrs. Holloway, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The company is about to go public. Early investors will see 1,000% returns. I'm talking about turning your $2.4 million building into $24 million in value. By risking it as collateral for your investment. By leveraging it strategically. Mrs. Holloway, you're sitting on a static asset. It makes $216,000 a year. That's good. But imagine if we could turn that into $2 million annually. That's what this investment offers. Or it offers losing everything when your cryptocurrency scheme collapses. It's not a scheme, it's blockchain technology, the future of finance. But I understand you're from a different generation. You don't see the potential. That's why I'm asking you to trust us. Trust Kendra. She understands this world. Derek, I appreciate the call. But no, the building stays as it is, generating reliable income, not risking everything on promises of 1,000% returns. Mrs. Holloway, with all respect, that's short-sighted thinking. You're leaving money on the table. I'm protecting what my husband built. There's a difference. But he's gone. You're here. And eventually, Kendra will have the building anyway. Why not use it to help her now instead of making her wait for you to die? There it was again. The framing. I was making Kendra wait for me to die. I was being an obstacle. I should help her now because she'd get it eventually anyway. Derek, you should know something. Kendra won't be inheriting the building. I've changed my will. She gets nothing. Silence, then, you what? I changed my will. Kendra is no longer my beneficiary. The building goes to a scholarship fund and my goddaughter. Kendra gets nothing. You can't do that. She's your granddaughter. I can do whatever I want with my assets. And Derek, I've done it. Kendra's entitlement has cost her everything. Tell her that. I hung up before he could respond, and I sat with what I'd just done. I told Derek that Kendra was disinherited, that she'd get nothing, that her entitlement had destroyed her inheritance. Part of me felt guilty. She was my granddaughter, my only living family besides her. But a larger part felt clear. because Kendra had shown me how she saw our relationship, as temporary, as her waiting for me to die, as her entitled to my assets. I'd removed that entitlement, and now they'd have to face what that meant. That evening, Kendra called, crying, furious. "Grandma, Derek told me what you said, that you changed your will, that I'm not inheriting anything. Grandma, how could you do that to me?" "I did it because you told me my building would be yours eventually anyway. Because you asked why you should wait for me to die. Because you see my assets as your inheritance instead of my property. Kendra, you showed me how you see me. I responded accordingly." "I didn't mean it like that." "You meant it exactly like that. Kendra, you looked at the building my husband built and you saw your future property. You asked me to risk it for Derek's cryptocurrency scheme. And when I said no, you acted like I was being difficult. That's not love. That's entitlement." "Grandma, I'm sorry. I said things I shouldn't have. But cutting me out of your will, that's extreme." "It's proportional. You want my building now instead of waiting for inheritance. Fine. There's no inheritance to wait for. You want to see me as temporary ownership. Fine. Now there's nothing for you to own eventually." "Grandma, please. I'll apologize. We'll forget about the building. Just don't cut me out." "It's done. The will is signed and notarized. You're not my beneficiary anymore. Kendra, you made your choice. Now live with it." She hung up crying, and I sat holding the phone, thinking about what I'd just done. I disinherited my only grandchild, cut her out completely, changed everything because of one conversation and one request. Was I being too harsh? Should I have given her another chance? No, because this wasn't about one conversation. It was about how Kendra fundamentally saw me, and that had been clear in every word she'd spoken. I wasn't her grandmother. I was a temporary obstacle between her and assets she felt entitled to. 1 week after disinheriting Kendra, something happened that showed me I'd been right to act quickly. Malcolm called. "Ruth, I need to tell you something. Someone tried to access the clinic building deed this morning. Filed a request with the county recorder's office claiming to be your authorized representative. Wanted a certified copy." "Who?" "The request was filed by Derek Hayes. Listed himself as your grandson-in-law with power of attorney. The county rejected it because we have no power of attorney on file. But Ruth, he tried to access the deed." "What would he have done with it?" "Best case, used it to show his cryptocurrency partners you'd agreed to collateral. Worst case, tried to forge your signature on loan documents. Ruth, this is attempted fraud." "Should I call the police?" "We should document it. I'll file a formal complaint with the county. Get it on record that Derek has no authority and any future attempts are fraudulent. But Ruth, this shows they're not giving up. They're trying to go around you." I felt cold. Derek had tried to access the deed without permission, had claimed power of attorney he didn't have, had attempted to get county-certified copies he could use for fraud. "Malcolm, what else can we do to protect the building?" "We've done most of it. LLC ownership. No power of attorney. County fraud alert. But Ruth, you should consider a restraining order. If Derek is attempting fraud, he might escalate." That afternoon, I called Diana. Derek tried to fraudulently access the building deed, claimed power of attorney. The county rejected it, but he's trying to go around me. "Ruth, that's criminal behavior. You need to protect yourself." "I'm documenting everything. Malcolm is filing county complaints. But Diana, I need to know, can Derek access my other accounts? My investments, anything else?" "Not unless he has your passwords or forges documents. But Ruth, change everything. Every password. Every security question. Add two-factor authentication. Make sure Derek can't access anything through social engineering or fraud." I spent the next 2 days securing everything. Changed every password. Added extra security. Made sure Derek couldn't talk his way into any of my accounts. And I documented Derek's attempted fraud. Filed formal complaints. Created a paper trail showing he'd tried to access the deed without authorization. 2 weeks after Derek's attempted fraud, Kendra showed up at my door. Alone, looking exhausted. "Grandma, can we talk? Just you and me." I let her in. We sat in the living room where this had all started. "Grandma, I need to tell you something. About Derek. About what's really happening." "I'm listening." "Derek's cryptocurrency company is failing. It was never as successful as he claimed. He's been lying to me for months about how well things are going. Grandma, he doesn't need your building for an investment opportunity. He needs it to cover debts." "How much debt?" "I don't know exactly, but Grandma, he's desperate. He tried to access the deed behind your back. He's been pressuring me to pressure you. And when you changed your will, he got angry, really angry. Started saying things about how we could contest it, how we could claim you were incompetent. He wants to have me declared incompetent to access my assets." "I think so. Grandma, I'm scared. I married someone I don't really know, and he's turning into someone I don't recognize. Someone who sees your building as his way out of problems I didn't know he had." I looked at my granddaughter, at Kendra looking terrified and lost. "Kendra, why are you telling me this now?" "Because I realized something. When you changed your will, when you cut me out, my first thought wasn't sadness about losing inheritance. It was panic about how Derek would react. That's when I understood I've been seeing you through his eyes, seeing your assets as solutions to his problems. Grandma, I'm sorry. I became someone I don't recognize." "Are you leaving him?" "I don't know, maybe. But Grandma, I needed to warn you. Derek is planning something. I don't know what. But he's desperate and he's angry and he thinks your building is his way out. You need to protect yourself." "I have been protecting myself. The building is in an LLC. My will is changed. I have medical documentation of competence. County fraud alerts are filed. Kendra, I've been preparing for exactly what you're describing." "You knew this whole time." "I suspected. Derek's behavior, the attempted fraud, the pressure, the entitlement, it all suggested desperation, not legitimate investment. Kendra, I've been protecting myself since the moment you asked for the deed." "So when I thought you were just being stubborn and old-fashioned." "I was being strategic. Kendra, you and Derek mistook my patience for weakness. Thought my calm refusal meant I was weak. You learned the difference when I changed my will." She started crying. "Grandma, I'm so sorry for everything, for seeing you as an obstacle, for asking for the building, for choosing Derek's pressure over your wisdom. Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at my granddaughter, crying, apologizing, warning me about her husband. Was this genuine? Or was this manipulation? Derek sending her to soften me up? "Kendra, I appreciate the apology, but I need to see change, not just hear words. You married Derek. You participated in pressuring me. You told me my building would be yours eventually. Those actions have consequences." "I know. Grandma, I'm not asking you to change your will back. I'm not asking for the building. I'm just asking you to believe that I see clearly now. That Derek's desperation showed me what I'd become. Someone who valued inheritance over relationship." "What are you going to do about Derek?" "I don't know yet. But Grandma, I needed to warn you first. Whatever he's planning, you need to be ready." After Kendra left, I called Malcolm immediately. "Derek is planning something. Kendra just warned me. She thinks he's going to try to have me declared incompetent to access my assets. We have your medical evaluation. He can't successfully claim incompetence. But Ruth, if he tries, it'll be public, messy, potentially traumatic." "I'm ready. Malcolm, let him try. I have documentation. I have proof of his fraud attempts. Let him file whatever he's planning. I'll destroy his case completely." 3 weeks after Kendra's warning, it happened. Derek filed for emergency conservatorship over me, claimed I was suffering from dementia, that I was making irrational financial decisions, that I needed a conservator to protect me from myself and from people trying to exploit me. The irony was staggering. Derek claiming I needed protection from exploitation while he'd tried to steal my building deed. The hearing was scheduled for 4 weeks out, and I prepared carefully. Malcolm assembled everything. Dr. Chen's cognitive evaluation, my financial records showing sound decisions, the documentation of Derek's attempted fraud, the county complaints, everything showing I was completely competent and Derek was the threat, not my protector. 2 weeks before the hearing, something happened that I didn't expect. Kendra filed legal documents separating herself from Derek's conservatorship petition, filed for divorce, and asked to testify on my behalf. She called me after filing. "Grandma, I'm leaving him. I can't be married to someone who'd try to have you declared incompetent to steal from you. I'm testifying at the hearing. I'm telling the court everything. About the cryptocurrency debts, about the fraud attempts, about how he manipulated me. Kendra, testifying against Derek could destroy your marriage completely." "It's already destroyed. Grandma, I chose him over you once. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm choosing truth over him. I'm choosing you." The conservatorship hearing arrived. Derek had hired an attorney, presented a case claiming I was declining, making poor decisions, needed protection. Then Malcolm presented our evidence: Dr. Chen's evaluation, my financial records, the documentation of Derek's fraud, the county complaints. And then Kendra testified about Derek's debts, his desperation, his plan to use the conservatorship to access my building, his manipulation of her. "Your Honor, my husband filed this petition not to protect my grandmother, but to access her assets. He's drowning in debt and he sees my grandmother's building as his way out. She's not incompetent. She's protecting herself from him, and she was right to do it." The judge reviewed everything. After 2 hours, he made his ruling. "I find no evidence that Mrs. Holloway is incompetent or in need of conservatorship. The medical evidence is clear. Her financial decisions are sound. The petition appears to be motivated not by concern for Mrs. Holloway's welfare, but by desire to access her assets. The petition is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mr. Hayes to pay Mrs. Holloway's legal fees and filing a referral for investigation of attempted conservatorship fraud." Derek sat stunned. His attorney tried to object. The judge shut it down. After the hearing, as we left the courtroom, Derek approached me. "This isn't over. You may have one today, but Mrs. Holloway, I know your building. I know its value. I'll find another way." Malcolm stepped between us. "Mr. Hayes, that sounds like a threat. Would you like to make it official so we can add it to the fraud investigation?" Derek walked away, and I stood outside the courthouse, thinking about what had just happened. Derek had tried to have me declared incompetent, had filed legal papers, had built a case, and he'd lost completely. Because I'd been preparing. Since the moment Kendra asked for the building, I'd been documenting, protecting, building a case against exactly what Derek had tried. They'd mistaken my patience for weakness, my calm refusal for inability to fight back. They'd learned the difference in a courtroom, with a judge, with evidence, with consequences. But as I stood there, I knew something else. Derek's threat was real. "I'll find another way." He wasn't done. He was desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 3 days after the conservatorship hearing, I was at home reviewing the legal bills from Malcolm when my security system alarm went off. Someone was trying to break into my back door. I grabbed my phone, called 911, watched the security camera feed on my tablet. It was Derek, at 11 p.m., using some kind of tool to try to force my back door lock. 911, what's your emergency? Someone is breaking into my home. I have him on camera. It's my granddaughter's husband. He just lost a conservatorship case against me 3 days ago. Police arrived within 7 minutes. Derek was still at the back door when they found him, arrested him for attempted burglary. At the station, Derek claimed he'd been worried about me, that he'd seen my lights off and thought something was wrong, that he'd been trying to check on me. The police didn't believe him. "Mr. Hayes, you were using burglary tools at 11 p.m. on the home of someone who just defeated your conservatorship petition. This isn't concern. This is criminal behavior." Derek was charged with attempted burglary. Bail set at $15,000. He couldn't make it. Sat in jail for 3 days until Kendra, surprisingly, bailaid him out. She called me afterward. Grandma, I bylaid him out because I needed to talk to him, to understand what he was thinking. He told me something you need to know. What? He wasn't trying to break in to hurt you. He was trying to find documents. Specifically, he was looking for the original building deed. He thinks if he can get the physical deed, he can use it to secure loans somehow. Grandma, he's not thinking clearly. He's desperate and he's convinced that building is his way out. Does he understand the building is in an LLC now? That even with the deed, he can't do anything without my authorization? He doesn't care. He's fixated on it. Grandma, I think he's having some kind of breakdown. The debt, the failed conservatorship, the criminal charges, it's all hitting him at once and he's unraveling. Kendra, are you safe, living with him? I moved out. I'm staying with a friend. I filed for divorce yesterday. Grandma, I'm done. I tried to help him, tried to get him to stop, but he won't listen. He's obsessed with your building. After the call, I sat thinking about Derek's obsession, about a man so desperate that he'd attempt burglary, so convinced the building was his solution that he couldn't see reason. I called Malcolm. Derek tried to break into my house. He was arrested. Kendra says he was looking for the building deed. Ruth, this is escalating. A man who'll attempt burglary might attempt worse. You need protection. I have a security system. Police response was fast. What else can I do? Get a restraining order. Keep him legally away from you and your property. And Ruth, consider staying somewhere else for a while, until Derek's situation stabilizes. I'm not leaving my home because Derek is desperate, but I'll get the restraining order. I filed for a restraining order the next day, documented the attempted burglary, the conservatorship fraud, the threats, everything. The temporary order was granted immediately. Derek was legally required to stay 500 feet away from me, my home, and the clinic building. 2 weeks after Derek's arrest, something unexpected happened. I received a call from a man named Victor Langston. Mrs. Holloway, my name is Victor Langston. I'm a private investigator working for a group of investors who believe they've been defrauded by Derek Hayes. Your name came up in our investigation. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop. Victor was professional, thorough. Mrs. Holloway, Derek Hayes has been running what we believe is a Ponzi scheme disguised as a cryptocurrency investment company. He's taken money from at least 40 investors, approximately $3.8 million total. He's promised massive returns, paid early investors with money from new investors. Classic Ponzi structure. And how does this involve me? Derek told several investors that he had a major real estate asset coming into the company, a medical clinic building worth $2.4 million. He claimed it was collateral from a family member. He used your building to convince people to invest. Mrs. Holloway, investors gave Derek money because they thought your building secured the investment. I felt sick. He told investors he had my building. He implied family support, showed photos of the building, made it seem like it was backing his company. Mrs. Holloway, people invested based on that representation. Now they're learning the building was never his, that he was lying. What happens now? The investors are filing a civil suit against Derek for fraud. We'd like your cooperation. We need you to confirm that you never authorized use of your building as collateral, that Derek had no legitimate claim to it. I'll cooperate completely. Victor, I want Derek held accountable for everything he's done. Over the following weeks, I learned the full scope of Derek's fraud. He'd started his cryptocurrency company 3 years ago, before he even met Kendra. He'd been running scams from the beginning. Meeting Kendra had been strategic. He'd researched her family, found out about my building, saw an opportunity. Everything, the romance, the marriage, the pressure for the deed, had been part of a long-term con to access my building as collateral for his scheme. Kendra had been used, manipulated, and I'd almost been defrauded of everything. When I told Kendra what Victor had discovered, she was devastated. He researched me before we even met. Grandma, our entire relationship was fake. He married me to get to your building. It appears so. Kendra, I'm sorry, I know this is painful. I fell in love with someone who was using me, who saw me as a path to your assets. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I helped him pressure you. I told you the building would be mine eventually. I said terrible things, and all of it was because I believed Derek's lies. You were manipulated. Kendra, Derek is a professional con artist. You're not the first person he's fooled, and you wouldn't have been the last. But I should have known, should have seen the signs. Grandma, you saw through him immediately. You refused from the start. Why didn't I see what you saw? Because you loved him, and love makes people vulnerable to manipulation. Kendra, you're not responsible for Derek's crimes, he is. 3 months after Derek's arrest for attempted burglary, the criminal and civil cases were progressing. Derek was facing multiple charges: attempted burglary, conservatorship fraud, investor fraud. The civil suit from the 40 defrauded investors was seeking $3.8 million in damages. Derek had no assets, no way to pay. His cryptocurrency company was a shell. Everything he'd claimed to own was either borrowed or fake. The investors were going to lose their money, and Derek was likely going to prison for a long time. One afternoon, I received a call from the district attorney's office. Mrs. Holloway, Derek Hayes wants to take a plea deal. He'll plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommended sentence of 12 years. Part of the deal requires him to provide testimony about other fraud schemes he's been involved in. Are you comfortable with this resolution? What about restitution to the investors? He has no ability to pay. The building never belonged to him, so there's nothing to recover. Mrs. Holloway, the investors will likely never see their money again, but Derek will go to prison for a substantial time. I'm comfortable with the plea deal, as long as it includes permanent provisions preventing him from ever contacting me or Kendra again. We'll include that in the terms. Derek took the plea deal 2 weeks later, pleaded guilty to fraud, attempted burglary, and multiple counts of investor theft, sentenced to 12 years in state prison. At the sentencing hearing, the judge addressed Derek directly. Mr. Hayes, you ran a sophisticated fraud scheme. You manipulated your wife. You attempted to defraud an elderly woman of her building. You lied to investors and stole millions. The harm you've caused is extensive and lasting. This sentence reflects the seriousness of your crimes. Derek showed no emotion, just accepted the sentence and was led away. After the hearing, several of the defrauded investors approached me. Mrs. Holloway, thank you for not giving him your building. If you had, we'd have lost even more. Your refusal to be manipulated saved us from deeper losses. One investor, a woman named Patricia Moore, gripped my hand. Mrs. Holloway, Derek told me the building was secured, that it was family collateral. I invested $80,000 of my retirement savings because I thought your building made it safe. When I learned you'd refused him, I was angry at first. I thought you could have prevented this. But then I understood you were protecting yourself from a predator. I should have done the same. I'm sorry you lost your retirement savings. I'm sorry I believed a con artist instead of doing proper due diligence. Mrs. Holloway, you showed me something important. That when someone pressures you for assets, the answer should always be no. That patience isn't weakness. It's wisdom waiting for the truth to reveal itself. 6 months after Derek's sentencing, Kendra's divorce was finalized. She'd returned to her maiden name, was rebuilding her life, working at a pharmacy, living alone, processing everything that had happened. She came to visit one afternoon. Grandma, I need to ask you something. Do you think you'll ever change or will back? Include me again. I thought about that question carefully. I don't know, Kendra. You were manipulated by Derek. I understand that now. But you also showed me how you saw me. As temporary ownership of assets you felt entitled to. That wasn't all Derek. Some of it was you. I know. Grandma, I'm not asking you to change it now. I'm asking if you think someday, after I've proven I've changed, you might reconsider. Maybe, but Kendra, that would require years of changed behavior. Of showing me you value our relationship over potential inheritance. Of proving you see me as a person, not as assets you're waiting to access. How long would that take? I don't know, 5 years? 10? However long it takes for me to trust that you've genuinely changed. Kendra, you can't rush rebuilding trust. You can only demonstrate through consistent actions over time that you're different. I understand. Grandma, I'll spend however long it takes showing you I've changed. Not to get back in your will, but to repair our relationship. Because I realized something. When you changed your will, my first thought was panic about losing inheritance. It should have been sadness about losing you. That's what I need to fix in myself. Over the following year, Kendra did exactly what she'd promised. She visited regularly. Never asked about the will or inheritance. Just spent time with me. Helped with errands. Rebuilt our relationship slowly. And I watched, observed, documented the change. Was it genuine? Or was it a long-term manipulation to get back into my will? Time would tell. Patience would reveal the truth, just like patience had revealed Derek's true nature. 18 months after Derek's sentencing, I received a letter, prison mail, from him. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Mrs. Holloway, I'm writing because my therapist says I need to make amends. Not for me, for the people I hurt. I researched your family before I met Kendra. I learned about your building. I calculated its value. I planned how to access it. Everything about my relationship with Kendra was designed to get to your assets. I'm not apologizing because I feel bad. I'm apologizing because it's true. I manipulated your granddaughter. I tried to steal from you. I lied to investors using your building as false security. You saw through me immediately. You refused from the start. And Mrs. Holloway, your refusal destroyed my entire scheme. If you'd given me the deed, even temporarily, I'd have used it to defraud more investors. Your patience, your calm refusal, your quiet no, it stopped me. I mistook that patience for weakness. Thought you were just old and stubborn. Didn't understand you were being strategic, protecting yourself while watching me reveal who I really was. You were right about everything. And I'm spending 12 years in prison learning lessons I should have learned before I became a criminal. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just acknowledging you were stronger than I ever understood. Your patience wasn't weakness. It was intelligence waiting for the truth. Derek. I read the letter twice, then filed it with all the other documentation, another piece of the story, another confession. Derek finally understanding that my patience had been strength, that my calm refusal had been strategy, that I'd been protecting myself while letting him reveal his true nature. He'd learned the difference. In prison, too late to change anything. 2 years after Derek's sentencing, something happened that surprised me. The 40 defrauded investors organized, created a support group, asked me to speak at their meetings. Mrs. Holloway, you're the person who said no, who refused to be manipulated, who protected yourself while Derek was running his scheme. We'd like you to share your story, to teach other people how to recognize manipulation, how to protect themselves. I agreed, started speaking at their meetings, sharing what I'd learned. Derek called me from a generation that doesn't understand digital assets. He used my age to dismiss my concerns. He framed my refusal as being old-fashioned and out of touch. But really, I was being careful. I was protecting assets built over decades. I was refusing to risk everything on promises I didn't understand. When someone tells you you're too old to understand their investment opportunity, that's not respect. That's manipulation. When someone pressures you to act quickly before you miss out, that's not opportunity. That's a scam. When someone says your assets would be theirs eventually anyway, so why not help now? That's not family love. That's entitlement looking for early access. I said no, calmly, repeatedly, and I was called difficult, selfish, out of touch. But that patience, that calm refusal, it saved everything. Because while Derek thought I was just being stubborn, I was documenting, preparing, building protections, being patient while gathering evidence. They mistook my patience for weakness. They learned the difference when I had everything documented, and they had nothing but failed schemes and criminal charges. The support group grew, 50 investors, then 80, then over 100, all people who'd been defrauded by various schemes, all learning to recognize manipulation, all rebuilding their lives. And I became an accidental advocate, Teaching people that patience isn't weakness, that saying no is powerful, that protecting yourself while observing is strategy, not passivity. 3 years after Derek's sentencing, Kendra came to me with news. Grandma, I'm getting remarried to someone I've been dating for a year, someone who has no idea about your building or your assets, someone I met through work who values me for me. What's his name? James, he's a pharmacist, works at the same hospital I do. Grandma, he doesn't know about the will changes, doesn't know about Derek. I haven't told him any of it because I wanted him to get to know me without that history coloring his perception. Are you going to tell him? Yes, before we get engaged. I need him to know what happened, what I did, how I was manipulated. Grandma, I want him to meet you, to understand that I'm rebuilding trust with you slowly, that I'm not entitled to inheritance or assets, that I'm just working on having a real relationship with my grandmother. I met James 2 weeks later. He was genuine, kind, clearly loved Kendra for who she was, not what she might inherit. And he knew nothing about my building, didn't ask, didn't hint, just wanted to know about Kendra's family. After he left, I thought about whether this was the change I'd been waiting for, whether Kendra had genuinely transformed. 3 years of consistent behavior, 3 years of never mentioning inheritance, 3 years of rebuilding relationship instead of angling for assets. Maybe it was real. 4 years after Derek's sentencing, I made a decision. I called Malcolm. Malcolm, I want to update my will again. I'm adding Kendra back, not as primary beneficiary, but as one of several beneficiaries. She'll inherit the clinic building jointly with Nia and the scholarship fund, 1/3 each. Kendra doesn't get everything, but she gets something. What changed your mind? 4 years of changed behavior. 4 years of prioritizing relationship over inheritance. 4 years of showing me she's learned. Malcolm, I'm not giving her everything, but I'm acknowledging that she's worked to repair what she destroyed. I didn't tell Kendra about the will change. Didn't tell her she was back as a partial beneficiary, because the point wasn't the inheritance. The point was the relationship. And if Kendra never knew she was back in the will, if she kept rebuilding our relationship without that motivation, that would prove it was real. 5 years after Derek's sentencing, on my 80th birthday, Kendra organized a small party. Just family and close friends. Nia, James, a few neighbors. People who'd supported me through everything. At the party, Kendra gave a toast. To Grandma Ruth, the woman who taught me that patience isn't weakness, that saying no is powerful, that family means protecting each other, not exploiting each other. Grandma, 5 years ago I told you your building would be mine eventually. I said terrible things. I chose a con artist over you, and you responded by protecting yourself, by being patient while I learned hard lessons. Thank you for not giving up on me, for letting me rebuild trust slowly, for showing me what real strength looks like. After the party, Kendra pulled me aside. Grandma, I need to tell you something. I don't care about inheritance anymore. I really don't. If you never change your will, if everything goes to Nia and the scholarship fund, I'm okay with that. Because Grandma, I have something more valuable. I have you. I have a real relationship built on honesty. That's worth more than any building. I looked at my granddaughter, at the woman who'd spent 5 years proving she'd changed, who'd rebuilt trust through consistent actions, who'd shown me that sometimes people can genuinely transform. Kendra, I believe you, and you should know, I changed my will 2 years ago. You're back as a partial beneficiary. 1/3 of the building, shared with Nia and the scholarship fund. You changed it back, when? 2 years ago, after 3 years of watching you rebuild. I didn't tell you because I wanted to see if you'd keep growing without knowing. And you did. Kendra, that's how I knew the change was real. She started crying. Thank you, not for the inheritance, for trusting me again, for believing I'd changed. Grandma, that means more than any asset. 6 years after Derek's sentencing, I received news. Derek had been released on parole after serving 7 years of his 12-year sentence. Good behavior, completed programs, met all requirements. He was out, living in a different state, working construction, complying with parole. The permanent no-contact order was still in effect. He couldn't contact me or Kendra, couldn't come near the clinic building. But he was out there, free again. I felt nothing, no fear, no anger, no curiosity. He'd mistaken my patience for weakness, had learned the difference through criminal conviction and 7 years in prison. That lesson had cost him everything: his freedom, his marriage, his scheme, his future. And it had taught me something valuable. That patience is a form of strength. That calm observation is strategic. That protecting yourself while letting someone reveal their true nature is powerful. Derek chose manipulation. I chose patience. And we both lived with those choices. He learned the difference between patience and weakness in a prison cell. I learned the difference in knowing I'd protected everything that mattered: my assets, my granddaughter's future, my legacy, and dozens of investors from deeper losses. They mistook my patience for weakness. They learned the difference later. And that difference cost them everything while saving me everything. That was the lesson. That was the victory. Patience isn't passive, it's strategic. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is wait calmly while the truth reveals itself. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 7 years after Derek's release from prison, I was 86 years old when I received a phone call that brought everything full circle. It was from Victor Langston, the private investigator who'd uncovered Derek's Ponzi scheme years ago. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm calling because something has happened that I think you should know about. It involves Derek Hayes." My heart sank. What did he do now? Nothing criminal. Actually, the opposite. Derek has spent the past 7 years working with fraud prevention organizations, teaching people how to recognize Ponzi schemes, speaking at investment seminars about the warning signs. "Mrs. Holloway, he's become an advocate for protecting elderly people from financial exploitation." I sat down slowly. Derek is doing fraud prevention work. Yes, and he's good at it. He speaks from experience, tells his whole story: the Ponzi scheme, the attempt to defraud you, the prison sentence. He's brutally honest about what he did. And Mrs. Holloway, he's helped multiple law enforcement agencies identify active fraud schemes. He's prevented at least 12 elderly people from being defrauded in the past 3 years. Why are you telling me this? Because Derek is speaking at a conference here next month, Elder Financial Abuse Prevention, and he asked me to reach out to you. He wants to know if you'd be willing to speak on the same panel, to tell your story from the victim's perspective while he tells it from the perpetrator's perspective. He wants me to speak with him, after everything he did. He said you'd probably say no. He said he doesn't deserve to be on the same stage as you. But Mrs. Holloway, the conference organizers think it would be powerful. The woman who said no and the man who went to prison for trying to steal from her, both teaching people about financial exploitation from opposite sides. I need to think about it. After the call, I sat thinking about Derek, about whether people could truly change, about whether 7 years of advocacy work erased 7 years of fraud. I called Kendra. Derek wants me to speak with him at a conference about elder fraud. He's apparently been doing prevention work for years. I know. He reached out to me 2 years ago, asked permission to tell our story publicly. I told him I'd think about it. "Grandma, I've been monitoring his work from a distance. He's legitimate. He's helped a lot of people, but I understand if you don't want anything to do with him." "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should do whatever feels right for you. Grandma, Derek destroyed lives, including mine. But if he's genuinely trying to prevent others from doing what he did, maybe that counts for something. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement that people can change direction even if they can't undo the past." I thought about it for 2 weeks, finally called Victor back. "I'll speak at the conference, but I need conditions. Derek and I don't interact privately. We speak on stage only. He doesn't approach me before or after. This is professional, not personal." "I'll make sure he understands." The conference was a month later. I arrived with Kendra and Nia for support. The panel was called "Financial Predators and Their Prey," a conversation about elder exploitation. Derek was already on stage when I arrived. He looked older, grayer, humbler. When he saw me, he nodded respectfully but didn't approach. The moderator introduced us. Ruth Holloway, who successfully protected herself from a sophisticated fraud attempt, and Derek Hayes, the person who attempted that fraud and served 7 years in prison for it. Derek spoke first. I targeted Mrs. Holloway's family deliberately. I researched her building. I married her granddaughter as part of a scheme to access that building. I manipulated, I lied, I tried to steal. And Mrs. Holloway did something that destroyed my entire scheme. She said no, calmly, repeatedly, and she meant it. He looked at me. I mistook her patience for weakness, her calm refusal for inability to see what I was doing. But Mrs. Holloway was being strategic. She was protecting herself while documenting everything I did. While I thought I was manipulating her, she was building the case that would send me to prison. The moderator turned to me. Mrs. Holloway, what made you refuse when so many people would have given in to family pressure? I didn't trust Derek from the beginning. His story about cryptocurrency investments didn't make sense. The pressure to act quickly raised red flags. And when my granddaughter said my building would be hers eventually anyway, I understood what was really happening. They saw my assets as theirs already. They were just trying to access them early. What would you tell other elderly people facing similar pressure? That patience isn't weakness. When someone pressures you to make fast financial decisions, slow down. When someone dismisses your concerns as being old-fashioned, listen to those concerns. When family makes you feel guilty for protecting your assets, protect them anyway. I was called difficult, selfish, out of touch. But that patience, that calm refusal, it saved everything. Derek spoke again. Mrs. Holloway's patience destroyed my scheme because it gave her time to see clearly, time to document, time to prepare defenses. If she'd reacted emotionally, if she'd argued or given in quickly, I'd have exploited that. Her patience was strategic. It was powerful. And I spent 7 years in prison learning that lesson. Do you think you've changed? The moderator asked Derek. I've changed direction. I can't undo what I did. Can't give back what I stole. Can't repair the relationships I destroyed. But I can use what I learned as a predator to teach people how to recognize predators. I know the tactics because I used them. I know the manipulation because I perfected it. And now I teach people to recognize exactly what I was. After the panel, several audience members approached me. Elderly people who'd been pressured by family. Adult children worried about parents. All asking the same question, how did you stay strong? I stayed strong because I understood something important. My husband built that building. It represented 40 years of his work. Giving it to Derek would have betrayed everything my husband worked for. I chose honoring my husband's legacy over family harmony. That's what gave me strength. One woman, probably in her 70s, gripped my hand. My daughter wants me to sign over my rental properties to her, says it'll help with taxes, but something feels wrong. Your story made me realize it's okay to say no, even to family, even when they pressure me. It's not just okay, it's necessary. Protect what you've built. Don't let guilt override wisdom. Derek kept his distance during the conference, never approached me privately, respected the boundaries I'd set. But at the end, as I was leaving, he was standing near the exit. We made eye contact. He spoke quietly. Mrs. Holloway, I know you don't want to talk to me. I'm respecting that. But I need you to know you saved my life. Not from prison, from myself. You forced me to face consequences. That's the only thing that could have stopped me. Thank you. I looked at Derek, at the man who'd tried to steal from me, who'd manipulated my granddaughter, who'd defrauded 40 investors. Derek, I didn't save your life. I protected mine. You changed because prison forced you to. Don't make me responsible for your redemption. Take responsibility for your own choices, past and present. You're right. I apologize. Mrs. Holloway, I just wanted you to know that your refusal to be manipulated stopped a predator. However many people I've helped in the past 7 years, that's because you said no. That's because your patience was stronger than my manipulation. Then help more people. Make the rest of your life count for something. But Derek, we're not friends. We're not family. We're a victim and her perpetrator who both learned something from what happened. That's all. I understand. Thank you for speaking today, for telling your story, for showing people that victims can be strong. After the conference, Kendra, Nia, and I went to dinner. How do you feel? Kendra asked. About seeing Derek, about hearing him talk about what he did. Strange. He seemed genuinely changed. But Kendra, change doesn't erase harm. Derek can spend the rest of his life doing good work, and it won't give back what he took from those 40 investors. It won't give you back the years you spent married to a con artist. It won't undo the fear and stress he caused me. So you don't forgive him. I acknowledge he's changed direction. That's different from forgiveness. Kendra, forgiveness is about the relationship. We don't have a relationship, we just have history. He's doing good work now. That's commendable. But it doesn't create a bond between us. 2 months after the conference, something unexpected happened. The 40 defrauded investors from Derek's Ponzi scheme contacted me. They'd organized, and they wanted to do something significant. Patricia Moore, who'd lost her retirement savings, called me. Mrs. Holloway, we've been meeting regularly, working through what happened, and we've decided to create something. A fund to help elderly people who have been defrauded by family members. We'd like to name it after you. The Ruth Holloway Financial Protection Fund. Name it after me. You're the person who said no, who protected yourself, who showed us all that victims can be strong. Mrs. Holloway, we want to honor that. We want to help other elderly people before they lose everything the way we did. Patricia, I'm honored, but I didn't help you. I only protected myself. You protected yourself by being strong when we were weak, by saying no when we said yes. Mrs. Holloway, if we'd been like you, if we'd been patient and skeptical and strategic, we wouldn't have lost our money. Your example is helping us now. Let us honor it by helping others. The Ruth Holloway Financial Protection Fund launched 6 months later, funded by contributions from the 40 investors and matched by several foundations. The fund provided legal assistance, financial counseling, and education for elderly people facing family financial pressure. In the first year, the fund helped 63 people. By the second year, it had expanded to 3 states and helped over 200 people. At 87, I'd become the namesake of a fund helping people avoid what I'd avoided and what the 40 investors hadn't. One afternoon, I was at a fund event when a young woman approached me. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Mrs. Holloway, I'm Emma Hayes, Derek's daughter from his first marriage. Can we talk? I hadn't known Derek had a daughter. Of course. I wanted to thank you for everything you did. Mrs. Holloway, my father was a con artist my entire childhood. He was teaching me to manipulate people, to see them as resources, to believe that lying was okay if you got what you wanted. She paused, tears forming. Then he went to prison, and I went to live with my mother full-time. She put me in therapy, taught me honest values, showed me there was another way to live. Mrs. Holloway, if you'd given my father your building, if you'd let him succeed, he'd have kept being a con artist, and he'd have kept teaching me to be one. I didn't refuse for you. I didn't even know you existed. I know, but you saved me anyway. My father going to prison stopped him from raising me to be like him. And Mrs. Holloway, watching him work on redemption these past years, seeing him try to undo the harm he caused, that's taught me something too. That it's never too late to change direction even if you can't undo the past. After Emma left, I thought about the ripple effects of my refusal. I'd protected myself, but in doing so, I'd stopped Derek from continuing his frauds. I'd protected future victims. I'd prevented Emma from being raised as a con artist. I'd created evidence that helped establish the fund now helping hundreds of people. None of that had been my intention. I'd just been protecting my building. But the consequences had rippled far beyond what I'd imagined. 8 years after the conference, I was 88 when I received news that Derek had died. Heart attack. Sudden, he was 67. Kendra called to tell me. Grandma, Derek died. His work partner contacted me. They want to know if you'd be willing to speak at his memorial, about the impact he had through his prevention work. I don't think so. Kendra, I wasn't part of his life. I was the victim he reformed after defrauding. That's not a relationship. That's just history. I understand. But Grandma, his work partner, said Derek had a letter. For you, to be delivered if he died before you. He wrote it 5 years ago and updated it annually. Can I bring it over? The letter arrived the next day. 3 pages, handwritten. Mrs. Holloway, if you're reading this, I'm dead. And I wanted you to know some things I never got to say while respecting your boundaries. You changed my life by refusing to be manipulated. Not because you were trying to help me, because you were protecting yourself. But that protection forced me to face consequences that changed my trajectory. In prison, I had time to understand what I'd become. A predator who saw people as resources, who manipulated and lied and stole without conscience, who'd convinced myself it was okay because my victims had more than they needed. You showed me they didn't have more than they needed. They had what they'd worked for, what they'd built, what they'd earned, and I had no right to it no matter how good my story was. I've spent 13 years since prison trying to prevent other people from becoming me, trying to teach victims to be like you, patient, strategic, strong. I've helped identify 12 active fraud schemes. I've prevented over 300 elderly people from being victimized. I've testified in 22 fraud cases. None of that undoes what I did. Doesn't give back the $3.8 million I stole. Doesn't restore the retirement funds I destroyed. Doesn't repair my marriage to Kendra or give back the years she wasted with me. But it's something. It's a different direction. It's trying to make the rest of my life count for something other than destruction. Mrs. Holloway, you taught me the most important lesson I ever learned. That patience is strength. That saying no is powerful. That victims don't have to be passive. That protecting yourself is an act of courage that ripples far beyond what you can see. Thank you for being stronger than my manipulation, for teaching me through consequences what no one could have taught me through mercy. I hope you live the rest of your life in peace. I hope you kept your building and your relationship with Kendra. I hope you never regretted being strong when I was trying to exploit weakness. Your patience wasn't weakness. I learned that difference through years of consequences. And that education, painful as it was the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. Derek Hayes. I read the letter 3 times. Derek acknowledging that my patience had been strength, that my refusal had changed his life by forcing consequences. He'd learned the difference, finally, completely. And he'd spent 13 years trying to make his life count for something after being forced to face truth. I didn't cry, but I felt something. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement that sometimes the hardest thing you do, refusing to enable, forcing consequences, protecting yourself, creates changes you never intended. 9 years after Derek's death, I was 97 years old when the Ruth Holloway Financial Protection Fund celebrated its 15th anniversary. They'd helped over 3,000 people, recovered over $18 million in assets from various frauds, prevented countless more frauds through education. At the celebration, Patricia Moore spoke. She was in her 80s now. Ruth Holloway taught us that patience is strategic, that saying no is powerful, that protecting yourself protects others. 15 years ago, we were victims. Today, because of Ruth's example, we're advocates. We've built something good from something terrible. That's Ruth's legacy. After the speeches, a teenager approached me. Mrs. Holloway, I'm Sophie. My grandmother used your fund last year. Someone was trying to steal her rental properties. The fund helped her say no, helped her protect what she'd built. Mrs. Holloway, because of you, my grandmother still has her properties, still has her income, still has her independence. I looked at this young woman, a teenager whose grandmother had been saved by the fund created because I'd said no to Derek 15 years earlier. Sophie, I'm glad the fund helped your grandmother, but you should know, I didn't create that fund. I just protected myself. Other people built something from that. But you showed them how, by being strong when someone tried to steal from you, by being patient when they mistook it for weakness. Mrs. Holloway, you taught people that victims can win. That's what saved my grandmother. That evening, Kendra, now 57, sat with me. "Grandma, do you think about it? About how close everything came to being different? If you'd given Derek the building deed, everything would have changed. He'd have defrauded more people. I'd have stayed married to him longer. The fund wouldn't exist. Grandma, your one decision not to give him the deed that changed hundreds of lives." "I didn't know any of that would happen. I was just protecting what your grandfather built. I was being patient while figuring out what Derek really wanted. Kendra, I wasn't being heroic. I was being careful. Sometimes being careful is heroic. Grandma, you taught me something I needed to learn. That family doesn't mean giving people whatever they ask for. That love includes boundaries. That protecting yourself is an act of respect for yourself and for the people who built what you're protecting. Have you forgiven yourself for what happened with Derek?" "Yes, finally, I was manipulated. That's not my fault. But I also made choices, pressuring you, saying terrible things, prioritizing Derek over you. Those choices were mine. Grandma, forgiving myself meant acknowledging both. That I was a victim and that I made bad choices. Both can be true. 10 years after Derek's death, I was 98 when my health began declining. Not dramatically, just the inevitable wearing down of a body that had lived almost a century. Kendra moved in to help. James supported from his own home. Nia visited regularly. The clinic building kept generating income, $18,000 monthly, now distributed to the 3 beneficiaries according to my updated will. One afternoon, Kendra and I were sitting on the porch when she asked, "Grandma, what do you want people to remember about you?" "That I was patient when people mistook it for weakness. That I said no when it mattered. That I protected what was built. Kendra, I don't need to be remembered as heroic, just honest, just strong enough to refuse to be manipulated." "You're more than that. You're the reason the fund exists. The reason hundreds of people still have their assets. The reason Derek changed direction. The reason I learned to value relationships over inheritance. Those are consequences, not intentions. Kendra, I was just protecting myself. Everything else happened because protecting yourself creates ripples you can't predict." Then that's what I'll tell people. That Grandma Ruth protected herself and the ripples changed hundreds of lives. That patience isn't weakness. That saying no is powerful. That protecting yourself is an act that echoes far beyond what you can see. 6 months later, I died peacefully at home, 98 years old, surrounded by Kendra, James, Nia, and my great-grandchildren I'd gotten to meet. At my funeral, over 500 people attended, the 40 original investors, the 3,000 people the fund had helped, the advocates who'd learned from my example, Derek's daughter Emma, families who'd been saved from financial exploitation. Kendra spoke. "Grandma Ruth taught me the most important lesson of my life. She taught me through consequences, by changing her will when I showed entitlement, by being patient while I learned, by refusing to enable my mistakes, by being strong enough to let me face what I'd earned. That kind of love that includes boundaries and consequences, that's real love. That's what saved me." Patricia Moore spoke for the investors. "Ruth Holloway said no when we said yes. She was patient when we were impulsive. She was strategic when we were naive. We lost money. She protected hers. And that difference taught us everything we needed to learn. Ruth showed us that victims don't have to be passive, that saying no is powerful, that patience is strength." Emma Hayes spoke last. "Ruth Holloway never knew me, never intended to help me, but her refusal to give my father what he wanted stopped him from continuing frauds. That sent him to prison. That saved me from being raised as a con artist. Mrs. Holloway, I have an honest life because you were strong. Thank you." The clinic building continued generating income, split between Kendra, Nia, and the scholarship fund. The Ruth Holloway Financial Protection Fund continued its work, helping thousands more people over the decades. And Kendra, whenever she told my story, always ended the same way. "My grandmother taught me that patience isn't weakness, that it's strategy, that it's strength, that it's wisdom waiting for truth to reveal itself. Derek and I mistook her patience for weakness. We learned the difference later, and that lesson, painful as it was, changed everything." If this story touched you, Please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.